Hey everyone, this is Keith Scott from out in Sydney, Australia. I'm one of the voices of Bullwinkle J. Moose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kenny and Andy McPhee.
Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny and welcome to Relentless and Unstoppable. We have another amazing guest coming on the channel today, so please hit like and subscribe. And after this episode, please stay tuned to the RNU channel for more amazing guests. Let's get this on!
Hey everybody, how you doing? Just a quick little share of why I started Relentless and Unstoppable. It was for one very simple reason, because of Doug Kenny. Nothing to do with me at all, zero. I was just coaching Doug, and he took on the coaching and mentoring, and he made all the changes. He took all the suggestions from his parents as well as my coaching, but it was all about Doug, his breakthrough and his weight loss, his willingness to accept that he is dealing with high functioning autism and other issues, but he's never quit, he's never given up. So we did one interview with him to share his story, and then we decided to start interviewing other people. And Doug has now taken over the whole channel, and he does all the interviews, he runs everything. He's just an amazing young man. So RNU was born from simply what an amazing young man Doug is, and his story needed to be shared.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. My dad had a friend that a few years ago was accused of domestic violence, and he committed suicide before the police could, arrest him. And what ended up happening was it was discovered that the guy was very skilled at hiding his true character. And that's what a lot of abusers in this world do, from what I read on domestic violence. They have a tendency to wait until no one's looking before throwing their monster out at you.
Yes, they are incredibly skilled.
Yeah.
Incredibly, and they're incredibly skilled at controlling the people around them so that they don't speak up for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. It's really sad that domestic violence is actually ongoing. And I was just wondering, what solutions do you think there needs to be for domestic violence to prevent it, or maybe not just prevent it, but reduce it from happening as much as it has?
It's a little bit difficult to pinpoint and say exactly, what the right solution is, other than by actually having people speak up and identify. And I've run through some ideas in my mind in the past and even recently about this, thinking that maybe there should be, and I know this is going to sound very controversial, but maybe there should be a database of actual people who have committed domestic violence, sort of like what we have for child abuse, or like pedophiles.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Like the sex offender registry. We definitely need a domestic abuse one as well, a registry. Although, we still have to be careful because, we have to make sure that they actually rehabilitate themselves through the registry, because
Right.
With the sex offender registry, and I know that a lot of it is justified, but they put restrictions on you that basically last for the rest of your life. And, and it's going to sound controversial, but that can kind of, in my opinion, maybe prevent a little bit of rehabilitation from being performed. You know what I mean? So we still have to be careful with how we do the sex offender registry, and potentially in a domestic violence one as well. We have to make sure that the person can actually, if he wishes anyway, rehabilitate himself. Now, not just he, but also she,
She, right. Both sexes, right. Exactly. Yeah. And it is a very controversial, sensitive topic because, how is it that you can help somebody who is that way? If, for example, let's say in my ex's life, the church that he was attending for years, he'd been attending for almost 20 years, they had known about his abuse, but they never labeled it, they never really addressed it, and they never really confronted him. They had plenty of evidence to prove that he had been doing this with his first ex-wife, and yet they were not really offering him professional therapy. They're offering what they could only offer within their ability, within the church's capacity, but not, they don't have anyone trained in that area to be able to then say, I need to refer you to a professional who can, go over some things that we see are very,
Happening with you. Yeah.
yeah, that are just, alarming, and we don't want you to go down the wrong path. The same church that he attended at the time also provided anger management classes, and never had he ever been referred to those anger management classes that they would provide.
What and part of that would be they saw it happening, of course, and probably heard from his first wife. But I'm
Oh,
sure that if
yes.
they offered it to him, though, he would have been like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or he would have been like, how dare you say that about me? That's how people like that are.
He could have been very resistant to it, or he could have been, during that first marriage, they could have said, in order for you to make the proper changes, if you really want to save this marriage, we, instead of doing all the other things that they were approving of him doing, they could have said, in place of all this stuff that, yes, you could do to improve your marriage, we need you to work on you.
Mm-hmm.
Really need you to focus on this, because this is what is the real problem that needs to be addressed, that will then trickle down and help your marriage. It isn't so much just the marriage that's the problem. It's that you are exhibiting certain behaviors, certain, characteristics that now we call red flags, that are truly red flags, and have affected you, have affected your spouse, and have affected your children. But something in your life happened, and that needs to be addressed, because that hasn't been healed, whatever that was, whatever that trauma that you experienced, right? Because hurt people do hurt people. People who have been abused will abuse,
Mm-hmm.
molest, bully. So there is this, right? There's this dynamic that has been happening. It's happening in our society with anything. If it's something that you learned, it's something that you were taught, that was something that you grew up with, you're most likely going to repeat those patterns and those behaviors.
And if you're in a toxic atmosphere, because you inherit the
Yes.
same behaviors as others. And, I have experience with toxic relationships, and I've worked on myself for many years, you know.
Proud of you. A lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of therapy and a lot of counseling. And the reason why I did is because I wanted to feel like I was living a fulfilling life. And that's how I feel at the moment, since the counseling and the therapy. It does help you. And, more people need to just man up and admit that they have a problem and go through it, because, things aren't going to happen overnight, but it will eventually.
Yes, it does take steps, and I want to commend you for all the work that you've been doing, because it does take a lot to, like you said, just admit that there is a problem. That's just the
Yeah.
beginning part, but then the next step is then addressing it through some form of therapy, through some resource, some aid, some advocacy, someone.
Yeah. Do you think with your ex-husband that it could have also been generational? Like, did he grow up in the 60s or 70s, back like when Sean Connery said publicly that he didn't think there was anything wrong with a man slapping a woman or something? Do you think it was generational a little bit?
There, so I don't know about the Sean Connery example, but I do know that there are generational, what they call generational curses, where it could be a family pattern that just seems to be passed down and it is never really addressed. So then it just keeps spilling into the next generation until somebody decides it has to end with them. And I learned that my ex's father was an alcoholic,
Mm,
and he had major anger issues. He was physical with
mhm,
my ex. There were some stories that my ex could remember as a child that he recounted that were very disturbing to me, and of course then made sense. And I would try and help my ex to understand that that trauma was never truly healed, even though he would tell himself repeatedly, everything's okay. My relationship with my father and I is fine. We don't argue. We don't have any animosity. I said, but you don't understand. There's something deeper. There's a deeper layer there that is constantly being triggered, that you don't see in yourself, but it is triggered.
mhm.
And it has unfortunately affected you all these years, but I don't think he could see beyond that. I don't think he could see that at all to be able
No.
to address those triggers. He has some serious triggers.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are your hopes for the future?
Uh, well, my divorce, for one, is finally happening, which is wonderful. And then there's also custody, regaining custody of my daughter. It's like one step at a time, but I see so much improvement in the last 2 years since the separation, the divorce, the custody battles. We see that our daughter is being affected. My ex is, believe it or not, more amicable now than he has been in a long time. Do I fully trust him? I'm always, thinking in the back of my mind, just be very careful, document things. Um, Make sure that I can, take care of my daughter and myself moving forward and provide for her a better, environment.
Good on you. I'm really happy to hear that. So, what message do you want the world to hear from your journey?
It is not easy letting go of somebody that you believe, that you love and care very deeply about. But love should never hurt. Love should never hurt at any level, whether it's verbal, emotional, financial, physical. Love should never take you to a place where you hate yourself and then not function in a healthy relationship. And I really hope that people can have the courage and the self-esteem to rise up and to say, if it is happening, to stop it. For them to be the one have the courage to stop the abuse and walk away, because it is hard. The journey's hard, but it's so much more peaceful. Even though you're struggling financially to get yourself back up from basically the ashes of what happened in life, but you'll have more peace and you'll have more joy knowing that you did the right thing, not only for yourself, for your own mental health. We'll start there. My gosh, your own mental health, but the health of people in your life, like my daughter, if people have children, even their family. Everybody gets dragged into this and everyone feels it around us. And just knowing that you know how to identify the abuse and to be able to walk away from it is huge. That's big already. And if people can do that, then there's one less sad human who has to endure and suffer.
Yeah, for sure. That's all I have for now, but I thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
No problem. So where can people find you?
On Facebook.
Is that it?
Facebook, Instagram, under my name, or I have a business. It's under Creative Global Designs. That's where they can find me.
Awesome. So everybody, please check her out on Facebook and on her Facebook business page. Please hit like and subscribe. We all have sympathy for all victims of domestic violence, whether man or woman or child even. And we hope that they will heal and that there will be less humans that will be victims of domestic violence. And everybody, let's thank Karina for appearing on the show once again. And we'll see you next week for the next episode of RNU.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia saying so long, and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.